The mansion loomed in silence, its vast halls swallowing sound like a velvet curtain. Moonlight spilled through towering windows, painting the marble floors in silvers and shadows. Alina Petrova, lost in the weight of unpaid bills, moved her broom in slow, meditative arcs, the rhythm a fleeting anchor against her spiraling thoughts. A faint murmur broke the stillness, voices, low and conspiratorial, seeping from the study's heavy oak door. Her breath caught, curiosity tugging her closer. She crouched, heart thudding, the broom forgotten in her trembling hands. The words were sharp, laced with malice, though muffled by the door's thickness. Her pulse roared, eyes wide with sudden dread. She stumbled back, a gasp escaping her lips. In an instant, she was running, her sneakers pounding the cold floor, panic carving her features. She had to find him, Victor, the man she worked for, the man whose life hung on what she'd heard. But what it would cost her, she couldn't yet fathom. To understand, let's rewind to where it all began. The morning sun draped the world in gold, its rays slipping through the arched windows of Victor's estate, igniting the polished surfaces of a life built on audacious wealth. Crystal chandeliers cast rainbows across the dining hall, where Alina Petrova, 32 and weary, wielded a dust cloth with the precision of a painter. Her dark hair, pulled into a practical bun, framed a face etched with quiet resilience, though her hazel eyes betrayed the strain of debts that clung like damp fog. Clad in faded jeans and a threadbare sweater, she was a stark contrast to the opulence around her, a speck of the ordinary in a world of excess. Yet, she moved with purpose, her hands steady despite the ache in her shoulders, her mind tethered to the hospital bills piling on her kitchen table. Victor, her employer, was no enigma. His wealth was as loud as the cherry-red Mustang parked in the driveway, as bold as the tailored suits he wore with effortless swagger. At 40, he carried the charm of a man who'd clawed his way to millions and wore his success like a second skin. Alina had worked for him for 2 years, long enough to know his habits. The way he left coffee mugs on antique tables, the way he tipped generously when she mentioned her mother's treatments. He was kind, in his careless way, but his world felt galaxies apart from hers. Today, though, the air held a strange charge. Alina paused, her cloth hovering over a silver candelabra, as a prickle of unease danced across her skin. Perhaps it was Victor's distracted air at breakfast, his usual quips replaced by a tight-lipped nod. Or maybe it was the unfamiliar car in the drive, a sleek, black sedan with windows like obsidian, hinting at secrets within. She shook her head, chiding herself. You're here to clean, not to dream up mysteries. But the feeling lingered, a whisper of something amiss. She drifted to the library, a cavern of mahogany and leather-bound tomes that smelled of wax and time. Sunlight streamed through stained glass panels, casting jeweled patterns on the rug. As she polished the desk, her thoughts wandered to her debts, $15,000 now, with interest gnawing like a relentless tide. Her mother's illness had drained their savings, and Alina's pride, that stubborn flaw, kept her from asking for help. You'll manage, she told herself as always. But the numbers mocked her resolve. A sudden clamor snapped her from her reverie, the front door slamming, followed by footsteps and hushed voices. Alina froze, her cloth suspended. Victor's voice, usually a warm baritone, carried a rare edge. This better be airtight, Dimitro. I'm not playing games. Another voice, oily and precise, answered, Trust me, Vic. It's a lock. By next quarter, you're untouchable. Alina's heart stuttered. She shouldn't listen, shouldn't care, but her curiosity, that old, reckless spark, flared. She edged toward the door, peering through the sliver of space where it stood ajar. Victor stood with a man in a pinstripe suit, his sharp cheekbones and restless fingers marking him as Dimitro. A woman in a crimson coat hovered nearby, her face half hidden, her posture radiating quiet menace. Alina's breath hitched. The words, trust shares they won't know, felt like puzzle pieces scattered in a storm. Her mother's warning echoed, Stay out of trouble, Olenka. But trouble, it seemed, had found her. She stepped back, her sneakers scuffing the floor. The voices halted. Panic surged, and she busied herself with the desk, her pulse a drumbeat. Foolish, she thought, cursing her nosiness. The conversation resumed, and she exhaled, but the fragments she'd heard clung like burrs. Won't they know? The question gnawed, refusing to be dismissed. In the kitchen, she scrubbed counters with fierce focus, the scent of lemon cleaner grounding her. A basket of fresh rolls sat on the island, a gift from a neighbor, a small gesture of the community's warmth, the kind that kept Alina tethered to hope. But her thoughts kept circling back to Victor. Was he in danger? Or was he the danger? She didn't know, and that uncertainty was a splinter in her mind. Midday brought a new disruption. The front door swung open, and Natalia, Victor's ex-wife, stormed in, her heels striking the marble like gunfire. Her platinum hair gleamed, her designer coat a slash of scarlet against the muted elegance. Alina stiffened, her eyes dropping to the floor. Natalia's presence was a cold wind, her voice a blade. Still sweeping up, are you? Don't smudge the fixtures. Alina nodded, swallowing a retort. Natalia had a talent for making her feel small, a speck of dust in Victor's glittering world. The ex-wife's divorce had been messy, the gossip still fresh. Natalia had taken half his fortune, yet she lingered, a specter in his orbit. Why was she here? Before Alina could ponder, Natalia's phone chirped, and she stepped into the hall, her voice low but cutting. Yes, Dimitro, I'm here. Keep to the plan. Alina's blood chilled. Dimitro? The same man from the library? Her curiosity surged, urging her to eavesdrop, but fear anchored her. She scrubbed harder, her mind racing. It's nothing. You're jumping at shadows. But the coincidence felt like a knot tightening. By afternoon, the mansion hummed with tension. Dimitro, the crimson-coated woman, and a new face, a burly man with a scar, lingered, their voices a low buzz. Victor moved among them, his smile practiced but his eyes wary. Alina kept her distance, cleaning upstairs, but snippets drifted up, offshore, blind trust, each word a pebble in a growing pile. Her flaw, that insatiable need to know, pushed her to the brink. She lingered near the study, feigning a task, her heart a wild thing in her chest. Then happened. Alone in the shadowed hall, she heard them again, clearer now, behind the study door. Bankrupt him. He won't suspect. It's foolproof. Alina's world tilted. Dimitro's voice, thick with greed, was unmistakable. A woman, Natalia, laughed, a sound like breaking glass. He's too arrogant to notice. We'll strip him bare. Alina's breath caught, her broom clattering softly. Bankrupt Victor? The man who'd slipped extra cash into her envelope, who'd asked about her mother with genuine warmth. She backed away, her mind a storm of fear and duty. Tell him. Now. But doubt, her pride shadow, whispered. What if you're wrong? You need this job. She turned to flee, but a floorboard groaned. The voices stopped. Footsteps neared. Alina ran, her sneakers silent on the marble, her pulse a deafening roar. She had to find Victor, had to warn him before the trap closed. But as she rounded a corner, she slammed into a solid form. Hands steadied her, and she looked up into Victor's face, his brow creased with concern. Alina? What's the matter? His voice was calm, but his eyes probed, catching the fear in hers. She opened her mouth, the truth teetering on her tongue. Say it. But pride choked her, and she faltered. I heard something. In the study. His grip tightened, a flicker of alarm in his gaze. Before she could continue, Natalia's voice sliced through. Victor, darling, we're waiting. She stood at the study door, her smile a razor's edge. Alina's stomach plummeted. Had Natalia seen her? Known she was listening? Victor released her, his expression unreadable. Wait here, he said, his tone firm but laced with something softer. He strode toward Natalia, leaving Alina trembling, her mind a single, searing question. What have I stumbled into? Alina's heart pounded as Victor's footsteps faded toward the study, Natalia's sharp smile lingering in her mind like a warning. She stood frozen in the mansion's marble hall, her half-spoken truth. I heard something, hanging in the air, fragile as a spider's thread. Victor had paused at her words, his eyes narrowing, but before she could muster the courage to confess what she'd overheard, Natalia's voice had cut through, pulling him away. Now alone, Alina's pride battled her fear. You should have told him everything, she thought, her hands trembling. What if it's too late? But the risk of being wrong, of losing this job that tethered her family to survival, clamped her lips shut. She exhaled shakily, forcing herself to move, her sneakers whispering against the floor as she retreated to the kitchen. The scent of lemon cleaner greeted her, a faint comfort amidst the storm in her chest. She grabbed a rag, scrubbing the already spotless counter, her mind replaying the study's venomous words. Bankrupt him, foolproof. The memory was a blade, slicing through her doubts. She had to act, but how? Confront Victor again and risk Natalia's wrath? Or stay silent and let the plot unfold? Her pride, that old flaw, urged silence. You're just a cleaner, not a hero, but a deeper instinct, one she barely recognized, pushed back. Victor deserved to know, and she, Alina Petrova, wasn't invisible. As she wrestled with her choice, the kitchen door swung open. Victor stood there, his tailored jacket slightly askew, a shadow of strain on his face. Alina, he said, his voice low, what did you hear? Don't hold back. His directness startled her, and for a moment, she saw not the brash millionaire, but a man cornered, searching for an ally. Her throat tightened, pride warring with duty. I was near the study, she began, her voice barely above a whisper. I heard Dimitro and someone else. They said things about money, about hurting you. She stopped short of bankrupt, the word too heavy, too final. Victor's jaw tightened, but his eyes softened. Thank you, he said, the words simple but weighted. Stay out of it for now. It's safer. He turned to leave, but paused, glancing back. You're braver than you think. The compliment landed like a spark, igniting something in Alina she hadn't felt in years, resolve. But as he vanished into the hall, doubt crept back. Safer? Nothing about this felt safe. The next morning, Alina arrived at the mansion to find it eerily quiet, the black sedan gone, the conspirators' voices replaced by an oppressive stillness. Victor had asked her to meet him elsewhere today, an old warehouse on the edge of town. A place he owned, he'd said, where they could talk without prying ears. The request had unsettled her, but his tone, urgent yet trusting, had quelled her hesitation. She drove her battered hatchback through the industrial district, the landscape shifting from manicured lawns to cracked asphalt and rusted chain-link fences. The warehouse loomed ahead, its corrugated walls streaked with grime, a stark contrast to the mansion's elegance. Her stomach churned as she parked, the isolation amplifying her nerves. What am I doing here? She thought, her pride whispering retreat. But she stepped out, clutching her resolve like a lifeline. Inside, the air was thick with dust, motes dancing in shafts of light from high, broken windows. Crates and forgotten machinery cast jagged shadows, and the faint drip of a leak echoed somewhere deep within. Victor waited near a rusted table, his posture tense, a laptop open before him. Alina, he greeted, his voice steady but his eyes scanning the gloom. I needed you here because I trust you. What you heard, it's bigger than I thought. He gestured to the laptop, where spreadsheets glowed with numbers she couldn't parse. Someone's moving my assets, siphoning funds. I think it's Dimitro, but I need proof. Alina's breath caught. His openness disarmed her, but the weight of his trust pressed against her chest. Why me? She asked, her voice small. You're cleaner, her pride supplied, but she stopped, swallowing the words. Victor's gaze held hers, unflinching. Because you're honest, he said, and you've got more guts than half the people I know. A faint smile tugged at his lips, and she felt a flush of warmth, unexpected and disorienting. Was this gratitude, or something more? Before she could respond, a shadow shifted in the corner. Alina spun, her heart leaping as Dimitro stepped into the light, his pinstripe suit incongruous in the grimy space. Victor, he drawled, his voice slick as oil, you're slipping. Meeting your maid in a dump like this. His eyes flicked to Alina, sharp and predatory. She's out her depth. Alina's pulse raced, her pride stinging at the dismissal. But fear kept her rooted. Victor stepped forward, his frame taut. What do you want, Dimitro? He demanded, his voice a low growl. Dimitro smirked, pulling a flash drive from his pocket. Insurance, he said, tossing it onto the table. Every transaction, every shell company. You're bleeding, Vic, and you didn't even notice. Alina's mind flashed to the study. Bankrupt him, and her fear hardened into certainty. Dimitro was the architect, but who else? Natalia's laugh echoed in her memory, a ghost of complicity. The confrontation escalated as Victor lunged for the drive, but Dimitro was faster, snatching it back. Not so quick, he taunted. You want answers? Meet me tonight alone. No cops, no tricks. He glanced at Alina, his smile venomous. And keep your help out of it. He vanished into the shadows, leaving a silence that roared in Alina's ears. Victor cursed under his breath, slamming a fist on the table. I underestimated him, he admitted, his voice raw. My fault. Alina watched him, seeing the cracks in his confidence. Arrogance, she realized, had blinded him. Her own pride mirrored his, and the recognition stung. What now? She asked, her voice steadier than she felt. Victor met her gaze, a flicker of respect in his eyes. We dig deeper, he said, but I need you to stay close. You're part of this now. The words thrilled and terrified her, binding her to a path she hadn't chosen. They returned to the mansion that afternoon, the tension between them palpable, a mix of shared purpose and unspoken questions. In the library, Victor pored over documents, while Alina sat nearby, pretending to organize books but stealing glances at him. His focus, the way his brow furrowed, stirred something in her, a pull she didn't want to name. He's your boss, she reminded herself, but the warmth from his earlier words lingered, a dangerous ember. As they worked, a neighbor dropped off a tray of homemade cookies, a small act of kindness that grounded Alina. The community's quiet support, neighbors who checked on her mother, friends who shared meals, reminded her why she fought. But her stakes were personal now, her job, her family, and this fragile trust with Victor. She wanted to ask him about Natalia, about the crimson-coated woman, but her pride held her back. Don't overstep, it warned. Then the twist came. A phone rang, Victor's left on the desk. Alina glanced at the screen, Natalia. Her heart sank. Before she could stop herself, she answered, her voice trembling. Hello. A pause, then Natalia's icy tone. Alina? Why are you answering his phone? Stay in your lane, or you'll regret it. The line went dead, but the threat hung heavy. Alina's hand shook as she set the phone down, her pride denying the fear. She's bluffing, she told herself, but the lie felt thin. Victor noticed her pallor. What's wrong? He asked, his voice gentle. She hesitated, pride urging silence, but his trust in her demanded honesty. Natalia called, she admitted. She threatened me. Victor's face darkened, a storm brewing in his eyes. She's involved, he said, his voice low. I should have seen it. Alina's mind raced. Natalia, Dimitro, the plot. The pieces were aligning, but the picture was still blurred. As night fell, Victor prepared to meet Dimitro, insisting Alina stay behind. It's too dangerous, he said, but his hand brushed hers, a fleeting touch that sent her heart racing. She nodded, hiding her fear, but resolve burned within her. She couldn't stay silent, couldn't let her pride win again. As Victor left, she grabbed her coat, determination overriding doubt. She'd follow him, protect him whatever the cost. But as she stepped outside, a figure emerged from the shadows, Natalia, her eyes glittering with malice. Going somewhere, she purred, blocking Alina's path. Alina's breath caught, her world narrowing to the woman before her, the night thick with danger. The night air was sharp, slicing through Alina's thin coat as she faced Natalia outside the mansion. Natalia's silhouette loomed, her scarlet coat a slash of menace against the moonlit drive. Going somewhere, she repeated, her voice a velvet blade, her eyes glinting with malice. Alina's heart thudded, her resolve wavering under the weight of that stare. She'd meant to follow Victor, to warn him before he met Dimitro, but Natalia's presence was a wall, immovable and threatening. I was just leaving, Alina stammered, her pride urging retreat, but the lie tasted bitter. Natalia stepped closer, her smile venomous. Stay out of this, cleaner, or your little family pays the price. The threat landed like a stone, sinking into Alina's fears, her mother, her debts, her fragile world. But as Natalia turned away, disappearing into the shadows, a fire kindled in Alina's chest. She wouldn't cower. Not tonight. She sprinted to her car, the engine sputtering to life as she sped toward the warehouse district, her mind a storm of fear and determination. Victor was walking into a trap, and she was the only one who knew. Her pride, that stubborn flaw, had kept her silent too long, denying the danger, deflecting her role. Now, she'd correct it whatever the cost. The road blurred past, the city's lights fading into the industrial sprawl, where the warehouse waited like a sentinel of secrets. Alina parked a block away, her breath shallow as she crept toward the warehouse. The third location felt like a descent into another world. Its rusted walls glowed faintly under flickering streetlights, the air heavy with oil and decay. Broken glass crunched under her sneakers, each step a pulse of courage. Inside, the vast space was a labyrinth of crates and shadows, the drip of a leak now a rhythmic taunt. She navigated by memory, her heart pounding as voices echoed. Victor's, sharp with defiance, and Dimitro's, smooth and mocking. She crouched behind a stack of pallets, peering through the gloom. Victor stood in a pool of light, his posture rigid, facing Dimitro and the burly man with the scar. The crimson-coated woman was there too, her face finally visible. Natalia, her expression a mask of triumph. Alina's stomach twisted. The pieces snapped into place. Natalia wasn't just involved. She was the puppeteer, her bitterness woven into every thread of the plot. The flash drive lay on a crate between them, its small form a ticking bomb. "You're finished, Vic," Natalia purred, her voice dripping with satisfaction. "Your empire's crumbling, and you're too arrogant to see it." Victor's eyes blazed, but his voice was steady. "You think I didn't suspect? I've been tracking your moves for weeks." Alina's breath caught. His wariness, his trust in her, had been deliberate. But Dimitro laughed, twirling the drive. "Too late. The transfers are done. Your accounts are ash." The culmination hit like a thunderclap. Alina's mind raced to the study, the whispered plan. Bankrupt him. Now a reality unfolding before her. She'd warned Victor, but her hesitation, her pride, had given the conspirators time. Guilt clawed at her, but she shoved it aside. This wasn't over. She scanned a warehouse, spotting a rusty pipe on the floor. An idea, reckless and desperate, formed. She had to act, to be the hero she'd never believed she could be. As Dimitro taunted Victor, Alina crept closer, her pulse a deafening roar. She gripped the pipe, her hands trembling but sure. The twist came without warning. Natalia's gaze flicked toward her, as if sensing her presence. "Who's there?" she snapped, her voice cutting through the tension. Alina froze, exposed, her heart a wild thing. Victor's eyes met hers, a flash of alarm, then resolve. "Now!" he shouted, lunging at Dimitro. Chaos erupted. Alina swung the pipe, catching the scarred man's arm as he reached for Victor. He roared, stumbling, and she darted back, adrenaline surging. Victor grappled with Dimitro, the flash drive skittering across the floor. Natalia lunged for it, but Alina was faster, snatching it and bolting toward the shadows. "Stop her!" Natalia shrieked, her composure shattered. Alina ran, her lungs burning, the drive a burning weight in her hand. She didn't know its secrets, but she knew it was Victor's salvation. She ducked behind a crate, her breath ragged, as footsteps thundered closer. Victor's voice cut through, strained but fierce. "Alina, get out. I've got this." But she couldn't leave him. Her pride had failed her before. Now, her courage would not. She peeked out, seeing Victor pin Dimitro, the scarred man dazed on the floor. Natalia, however, was closing in, her eyes locked on Alina's hiding spot. The warehouse felt like a cage, its walls pressing in, but Alina stood, clutching the drive, her voice steady. "It's over, Natalia. Let go." Natalia's laugh was brittle. "You? You're nothing." But her eyes betrayed fear, and Alina saw it. Natalia's vulnerability, her need to control, rooted in a past she'd never escaped. "I'm enough," Alina said, the words a revelation. She tossed the drive to Victor, who caught it, his gaze fierce with gratitude. In that moment, their trust was a bridge, unyielding. The standoff broke as sirens wailed in the distance. Victor's backup, a plan he'd kept hidden. Dimitro cursed, Natalia faltered, and the scarred man fled into the night. Alina's heroic act, imperfect and fraught, had tipped the scales. The police stormed in, cuffing Dimitro and Natalia, the flash drive secured. Victor's empire was battered but intact, the transfers reversible with the evidence Alina had saved. The aftermath unfolded at the mansion, now a place of quiet reckoning. Dawn painted the sky in soft pinks, the marble halls serene after the night's chaos. Alina sat in the library, a mug of tea warming her hands, Victor across from her. His face bore the weight of betrayal, but his eyes held something new. Humility, forged in the fire of near ruin. "You saved me," he said, his voice raw. "Not just my money. Me." Alina's cheeks warmed, her heart a tangle of relief, and something deeper. Their bond had grown, tentative but real, its roots in shared danger. But obstacles lingered. Natalia's threats echoed, and Alina's own fears. Mistrust, the gap between their worlds, cast shadows. "I was scared," she admitted, her voice soft. "I didn't think I could do it." Victor leaned closer, his hand brushing hers, a touch that sparked fire. "You did, and I'm here because of you." Their romance, fragile and new, faced its test. Alina pulled back, doubt creeping in. "What about Natalia? She'll come for us." Victor's jaw tightened, but his voice was firm. "She's done. The evidence buries her, and I'm not letting her touch you." His words were a vow, and Alina felt the weight of her own courage, her arc from doubt to strength complete. She nodded, a smile breaking through. "Then we start fresh," she said, her voice steady, forgiving herself as she forgave him. The community rallied around them, neighbors arriving with casseroles and quiet support, a testament to the values that grounded Alina: family, kindness, second chances. Victor, once isolated by his wealth, joined them, his arrogance shed like old skin. But realism tempered their hope. Alina's debts remained, a shadow on her future, and Victor's empire needed rebuilding. Healing, they knew, was a journey, not a destination. As they stood on the mansion's steps, the morning sun warm on their faces, Victor took her hand, his touch a promise. "We'll face it together," he said, and Alina believed him. Their love, forged in fire, was imperfect but true, a beacon of possibility. Subscribe to the channel to see more soul-stirring stories.